Today, we are diving deep into a list that is, frankly, pretty shocking. We're going to count down the 10 largest pickup truck recalls in American history. And these aren't just, minor fixes. We're talking about millions of trucks with flaws that could be absolutely catastrophic. So, let's get right into it. The source material for this really says it best. We all know pickup trucks are the backbone of the American industry. They are true icons of toughness and hard work, right? They're built to be abused, to be pushed to the limit, and to just keep on going. But what happens when that reputation for being bulletproof just shatters? What happens when a problem from the factory isn't just in a few hundred trucks, but affects millions of them, all driving on the road right now? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. Okay, so let's kick off our countdown with numbers 10 all the way down to 7. And you're going to see right away the scale we're dealing with here is just immense. I mean, get this. Our list starts with recalls that are all over 1 million trucks each. At number 10, we've got FCA, that's Stellantis now, with an issue where airbags might not even go off in a rollover. Then at number 9, over 1 million Ford F-150s had doors that could just fly open while you're driving. And look, FCA shows up again at 8 and 7. For tailgates opening on their own. And even worse, the stability control system just deciding to turn itself off. That's over 4 million trucks just at the bottom of our list. And this first group of recalls really shows you the two different ways things can go wrong these days. On one hand, you have a simple mechanical problem, like a bad door latch. But on the other, you've got a super complex software bug that takes out a critical safety system. It's this mix of physical parts and digital code that we're going to see over and over. Okay, let's keep going. We're now entering what I'm calling the danger zone. The numbers just get bigger from here, and the potential consequences, they get a whole lot scarier. So I want you to imagine this for a second. You're just cruising down the highway in your F-150, everything's fine, and then, bam, out of nowhere, the transmission violently slams itself into first gear. The whole truck lurches, tires squeal. It's a completely terrifying loss of control, and for a lot of people, this was a real and sudden danger. And just look at that number. Over 1.2 million Ford trucks had this ticking time bomb. So what was the fix for this massive, potentially deadly mechanical failure? A new transmission? Nope, a software update. It's just a perfect and kind of scary example of how a few bad lines of code can cause total chaos on the road. All right, coming in at number 5 is one you've probably heard about, the infamous Toyota floor mat recall. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? A floor mat. But what happened was the wrong mat, or one that wasn't secured, could slide up and literally pin the gas pedal to the floor, leading to this terrifying, unstoppable acceleration. And this right here shows you just how serious this was. Toyota's fix wasn't just, hey, get a new mat. It was this huge 4-part overhaul. They physically had to reshape the pedal and the floor, they replaced the mats, and they even added new software so that hitting the brake would always cut the throttle. Sadly, this all happened after this defect was linked to several tragic deaths. At number 4, we've got Ram trucks again, and this time it's a huge rollaway risk. A little part called the brake transmission shift interlock could fail. So what does that mean? It means you could pull the truck out of park without your foot on the brake, even when the key wasn't in the ignition. Just let that sink in. Nearly 1.5 million heavy-duty Ram trucks parked on hills and driveways all across the country that could just decide to go for a roll on their own. The number is just staggering for a defect that is so fundamentally dangerous. Okay, let's take a breath because we have now made it to the top 3. These are the big ones. The recalls that absolutely dominated the news and left a huge mark on the entire auto industry. This next one is it's hard to believe. In a crash, the seatbelt pretensioners in the Ford F-150, the device designed to pull you tight and save you, could actually generate sparks. And those sparks could light the insulation on fire, starting a blaze inside the cabin right at the moment you are most vulnerable. Over 1.6 million. That is how many trucks were driving around with a potential fire hazard hidden inside their main safety system. The very thing that's supposed to save your life could actually start a fire. The irony is just off the charts. So you're probably wondering, how do you fix a flaw that dangerous? Some really complex re-engineering, right? Not quite. Ford's official fix was to remove some insulation and apply heat-resistant tape. Yes, a recall for over 1.5 million trucks was fixed with tape. Coming in hot at number 2 is what the source material perfectly calls nightmare fuel. A wiring problem in millions of Ram trucks could short circuit and make it impossible for the driver to turn off the cruise control. You couldn't tap the brake to turn it off, you couldn't hit the button, it just would not stop accelerating. The number is just insane. Roughly 2.6 million trucks had this potential glitch. Can you even imagine the absolute panic of being in that situation? It is easily one of the largest and most terrifying software-related recalls ever. And now, we've made it. We've reached the very top of the list. This is the single largest pickup truck recall in the history of the United States. The number 1 spot goes to General Motors for its infamous ignition switch scandal. In about 2.7 million Silverado and Sierra trucks, a faulty ignition switch could get bumped out of the run position while the truck was moving. And the second that happened, the engine died, and along with it, you lost your power steering, your power brakes, and your airbags, a total and complete loss of control. This went way beyond just a recall. It became a massive corporate scandal that led to so many preventable accidents and, tragically, numerous deaths. The fix was to replace the switches, but the damage to GM's reputation and, more importantly, to the victims and their families was just immense. So, after all that, after counting down these unbelievably massive failures, what's the big takeaway? What can we learn from a list like this? Well, I think the biggest lesson is how failure has evolved. We still see the classic hardware problems, right? Bad door latches from Ford, faulty ignition switches from GM. But now, layered right on top of that, we have these modern software bugs that are just as deadly, disabling airbags, locking on cruise control, killing stability systems. The number of ways a vehicle can fail has basically multiplied. And that brings us to the final and I think most important question. As our trucks and cars become basically rolling supercomputers, are we just entering a new era? An era where one tiny bug in the code can sideline millions of trucks all at once? Have these giant million-plus vehicle recalls just become the new normal? It's a critical question for the future of the auto industry. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.